Hello, this is Bill Webb, aka Billy Indiana. Today I'm going to share with you part 3 of the Alphabet Challenge. I was challenged by Dwayne and Alicia from Blackboard Gaming. They were challenged by Reggie from Rolling.Reggie, and so I've got links to their channels down below if you want to check out their channels. But I'm in part 3 where I'm doing number 6 and number 7 on the phone dial, and that is M-N-O and P-Q-R-S, those 7 letters, and going to share with you some of my favorite games for each letter. So if you're curious to see what some of my favorite alphabetically organized games are, stay tuned. Starting with the letter M, I'm going to share with you 2 games. I only own 7 that are in the letter M, and I'm limiting myself to games that I currently own for the most part, and also ones that I have played and ranked on BGG. So my number 2 is actually Mage Knight. And for a while this would have been my number 1 M game, but it's just been a while since I've gotten it to the table. It's got a large rules overhead, and it's one that my wife was okay with but didn't really love, so I primarily play it solo. And I have so many other games that I can play solo get it to the table much quicker, that just this one hasn't been getting to the table as much. So it's dropped a little bit just because of the ability to get it to the table in my current circumstances. But I really do love Mage Knights, Vlaada Chvátil, and this one's by WizKids. It's just a really great adventure. It is terrific solo. You're exploring this map. You're trying to have a really clever card play to manage resources and to go after these monsters. Just a really wonderful game. And I've got the Ultimate Edition with everything included. So a lot of fun. Mage Knight is my number 2 M game. And my number 1, which has recently surpassed it, and that is Moonrakers by Ivy Studios. This one is kind of a collaborative game in a sense. You are trying to negotiate and you are trying to win. It's a race game, a little bit like Dune Imperium that way. We're trying to be the first to the top of the track, but you do need to collaborate at times and negotiate those collaborations in order to time your perfect arrival at that 10-point winning number. So Moonrakers is really an excellent game. Just recently played it at a 5-player count, and I talked about it in my January gameplays. So Moonrakers is my number 1 letter M game. Moving on to letter N, I only have 2 games, which is kind of interesting, but of all the games that I own and have played and ranked, only 2 with the letter N. So I'm just going to share one of those that I really enjoy, and that is Nidavellir. Nidavellir is by Sergei Lagets. I'm not sure if that's exactly how you pronounce it in Grape Games. And Nidavellir, you got this interesting bidding mechanism where you are sometimes wanting to win a bid and sometimes trying to get a different position. And sometimes you're trying to get a certain tile back in that bidding process. So a really interesting thing there. And then I also recently picked up the Thingvellir expansion, but haven't had a chance to throw that in and try it out. But Nidavellir is a really fun game. It's pretty easy to learn, pretty easy to teach. And so that gives it an easy opportunity to get it to the table. So Nidavellir is my number 1 letter N game. Letter O. I only have 5 games with the letter O that qualify, but some of my favorites are in this category. Number 3 is On Mars, and here's the Alien Invasion expansion. This is a Vital Lacerda game with art by Ian O'Toole, published by Eagle Gryphon Games, and the production quality is always amazing. The art is incredible, and I really enjoy On Mars, but only have played a couple times, and so that's why it's 3rd. I could see it actually rising and becoming higher in the list, but for now it's 3rd, primarily just because I haven't played it that much. And again, it's got a large rules overhead, which makes it a little bit harder to get to the table. So On Mars is my number 3 of my letter O's, but one that I really enjoy. Next up is Orléans. And Orléans is a game that, again, I've only played a few times, but it's one of the few bag builders that I've actually played, and just played it recently by Rainer Stockhausen. And this is the TMG DLP version of the game. I think there's a couple other versions, but Orléans is a terrific bag builder where you're moving on tracks, you're competing for spots, all kinds of interesting things. I'm really excited to try the new Joan of Arc Draw and Write, I think it's called. And it's kind of a drawing from the bag and writing as a roll and write sort of game, a verb and write game. But Orléans is really terrific. And I think once I've played it more than a couple times, I could see it also rising in some of my overall favorite games of all time. Really did enjoy my first couple plays. And my number 1, though, currently in the letter O, is Oros, and this is by Brent Brickerhoff and Ash Games. And Oros is just so unique, and it is the one that I played the most too of these top three, and I can see all of them sort of jockeying for position here because I really do love all three. They're some of my favorite games over all the alphabet, in my top three with the letter O. But Oros is so unique in that you've got these tiles that you're colliding on this map of the world, and you're kind of simulating volcanoes erupting and plate tectonics, and those plates colliding and erupting into mountains and creating new landforms. And at the same time, you're trying to move followers around and create shrines and temples to the demigods. And the first demigod to reach the top of the ziggurat ascension chart kind of signals the end of the game. And you're tracking points there, and you're tracking points with on the board that you're manipulating. It's got tracks. Really an excellent game. So many unique mechanisms and combinations of mechanisms. It's got a worker placement where you're competing against yourself. You've got these certain worker placement spots, but it's on your own personal player board, so you're the only one that can go there. What makes it unique then is you have to really think ahead. I want to use this action, but I want to take this worker from that spot to go to this action, which will open up that spot for my next action, or maybe 2 actions down the road. So many fun, thinky things with Oros. Can't wait to get this one back to the table. Played it solo, played it with 2 players so far, played it with 4 players online. And I think hopefully going to get that one to my game group here soon. Also beautiful. And even on the inside, really incredible art there. So Oros, my number one, leave it here on the edge. Number 1, letter O game of the 5 that I own. And then we get into the letter P. I've got 7 games in my collection that, again, qualify. I've played them, ranked them. And the top 4, because there's some really good ones here. 1 is maybe not necessarily the best game I've ever played, but some of the most fun I've ever had. And that is just playing through the storyline of The Princess Bride. I've got a video. I'll try to remember to link it up here above. My wife and I enjoyed this game. It's just fun to live out the stories of Princess Buttercup and what is the prince name? I always forget his name. Anyway, Prince Humperdinck. And so it's just funny to remember the lines from the movie and to act out the storylines. And it's a cooperative game, which my wife and I tend to enjoy. It's really a simple game in terms of understanding it. And it's like a bunch of mini games. You flip the page to a new mini game, and they go from Wesley trying to get all his chores done to being on the boat and trying to survive the shrieking eels, and then you just keep going on through the stories of the rodents of unusual size and so on and so forth. So Princess Bride has just brought us a lot of laughter, a lot of fun, and so that's number 4 in my letter P games. Number 3 is Parks. This is by Keymaster Games, and Henry Audubon is the creator. And again, this one also has just really beautiful art inside the box and outside, and the art of this game is terrific. And a lot of people talk about how simple it is, and in some ways I can agree, but in other ways, especially if you start throwing in the expansions, I think there's a lot to think about. I would be hesitant to teach this to people who haven't played many games. The track is kind of a fun one where you can't be where someone else is most of the time. There's some exceptions to that, depending on when you play your campfire token and different things like that. But you're trying to collect resources, then trade them in as like your entrance to a park. And the art is from the 59 Parks art project. So just beautiful art, really fun gameplay. Taught it to quite a few people, but there's always a little bit more to teach than I expect. Every time I teach it to a new group, I realize, wow, there's more to this game than I thought. Just understanding how the backpacks work and how the binoculars work and just the gears, the gear items, so many different things, and that's even just without the expansion. So Parks is my number 3. Number 2, another really interesting and unique game, PAX Premier 2nd Edition by Cole Worley and Whirligig Games. Another one with kind of really pretty art inside, and a unique game just in its design. It's got these really cool clay, I think they're clay, or some kind of bakelite maybe, and figures that double as troops and roads, whether you're standing them up or laying them down, and it's on a cloth board. And it's a really kind of game of intrigue and decision making, and when you might want to side with another player, and other times when you need to step away, and how to manage your card tableau. You have kind of a small tableau, and if you change allegiances, and you got to adjust that card tableau. A lot of really clever things with PAX Premier. That's my number 2 letter P game. And then number 1 is one that I've been playing a lot recently again, and that is Planet Unknown. This is by Adam Rayberg and Ryan Lambert, Adam's Apple Games. And this is an interesting polyomino game where you have this cool Lazy Susan that you pull the polyominoes out of, and you can adjust that so there's some variability every time you play. You're putting them on your player board, and then I got the Kickstarter version, so there's like a dozen different player boards, and on one side they're all the same, but on the other side they're all unique with different starting powers and different abilities, which is cool. Then you've got another player board with tracks that you're going up to, and again, I think there's like 10 of those, and on one side they're all the same, but on the flip side they're all different. So again, more variability, more kind of unique setup for each player. Asymmetric, sorry. But Planet Unknown is such a fun game too. Really also fairly easy to teach. You can add a few different things in, like objectives and partner objectives and private objectives, public and private objectives and different things. And then you can add in that asymmetry if you want, which raises the difficulty level a bit. But you can just kind of play base game, and it's fairly easy to learn. And most people like Tetris and understand that whole polyomino fitting them together. And so Planet Unknown currently is my favorite letter P game. All right, don't want to block my view here. Actually, let me just put this on the ground. It's a big box. All right, and then moving on to letter Q. Letter Q, I only own 2 games and currently only have one that I want to mention. The other one's kind of an honorable mention. It's not even one of the 2 that I own, but I'll mention that is Queen Domino, a Blue-Orange Games. And I love King Domino, Queen Domino, King Domino Origins. But when I got King Domino Origins, I thought, this is really what I wanted Queen Domino to be, and so I traded that away. So I have enjoyed Queen Domino and used to have it in the collection, but it just didn't quite measure up to King Domino Origins, in my opinion, so traded it away. But I will mention it, because if I still had it, I probably would show it. The only one that I have that I think I'll mention here is Quinto. This is the 1964 3M version, and Quinto is just one of those old school games, and it's great for helping kids practice their math, and it's thinking in the way you're laying out tiles. You have to lay out tiles up to 5 of them, and the sum has to add up to a 5 or a multiple of 5 in every direction that you lay them out. And you can score depending on what they add up to. So really interesting mathy game. Quinto is a lot of fun if you like that sort of abstract kind of math. It feels a little bit like Scrabble with numbers. And so Quinto, a lot of fun there as a Q game. R, we're going to get into 23 games on my list of R games. And my number 6 is one that I have obtained fairly recently, and that is Roll Camera. This is by Keen Bean Games and Malachi Ray Rimpin. This one is a fun cooperative game where you're trying to build a movie that is either a masterpiece, basically, cinematic masterpiece, or so terrible that it's great and becomes like a cult classic. And it's a lot of fun in determining how you're going to design the set, when you're going to call meetings, how you're going to solve all the crazy problems that come up. And then I have an expansion of the B-roll movies, or not B-roll, but B-movies expansion, where they get even crazier. And so Roll Camera, we've had just a ton of fun every time we've played it. It's just a lot of laughs, and everyone that has played it with us has really enjoyed it. So Roll Camera is number 6 in the letter R. Number 5 is Red Cathedral. This is a De Vere game. And let's see, this one is by Shay S. and Isra C. I'm not sure. It looks like Sheila Santos and Israel Chindero on the back. But this one is an interesting game where you're rolling dice, and then you put the dice around the rim. That's kind of how you get it set up. And then as you move them, you're going to move at the number of pips, but depending on which color you choose and where it ends up, that's going to determine the value of the actions that you take. And then there's this cathedral over on the side, and you're trying to build the cathedral and decorate the cathedral and earn points basically by doing a great job of building and decorating it. So a really interesting Euro. It comes in a nice small compact box, but it's pretty heavy. And I haven't even tried I think it's called the Contractors expansion. Haven't tried that yet. But Red Cathedral, one of my favorite R games. Number 5 on the list. We'll put that right up there. Number 4 is Res Arcana. This is by Tom Lehman, and it is Sandcastle games. And Tom Lehman is well known for the Roll to the Galaxy, Race for the Galaxy games. But this one actually I enjoy more than those. And this is one where you're playing cards and you're combining those cards again with resources, kind of an engine builder, resource manipulation, trying to cast spells. And I just recently picked up the 2 expansions for this and haven't even had a chance to try them yet. You can also play this on BGA if you want to give it a shot. So Res Arcana, Really a cool game as well. Number 4. Number 3 has a lot of kind of, I guess, nostalgia for me, and that is Risk, Lord of the Rings. Growing up, Risk was one of my favorite games. Just absolutely loved playing Risk of all sorts, and I played most of the different versions of Risk that have come out at some point. But this Lord of the Rings version is my favorite of all the Risk games I played. I'd like to try Risk Legacy. I know probably it's not as great as some of the more modern Legacy games, but I love Risk, and I'd like to try it as one of the original Legacy games that came out. But Lord of the Rings, we had so much fun. My kids and I playing this one, playing the evil dark side versus the Fellowship, and trying to get the ring to Mordor, and the dark side, Sauron's troops trying to stop you. Very much Risk-like, but a little more to it than basic Risk. And so really a great one, especially thinking about the nostalgia for me, and that is Lord of the Rings Risk, and I have the Trilogy Edition. So that's why it ranks so high, number 3 in the R's. Number 2, kind of a combo here. We've got Role Player here, and I love playing with the Monsters and Minions and Fiends and Familiars expansions, and I also love Role Player Adventures. I didn't want to bring that one over because that box is gigantic. We played every adventure in the Role Player Adventures, all the side quests. We've done all the Nephrys's Judgment, I think, expansions with the backstories. So Role Player itself, Role Player Adventures, just had a great time with both of those games, and that's my number 2. With Role Player, you're basically rolling dice to create a role player character, and you're trying to get synergies between the numbers and the colors of the dice to give you growing abilities throughout the game. You're also trying to claim different equipment and different traits and skills as you go. It's a really clever use of dice placement, dice manipulation, and then when you add the Monsters and Minions and Fiends and Familiars in, it just ramps it up into fighting different characters with those abilities you're improving in your character. And then with Role Player Adventures, like I said, you're living out these adventures, and you're, again, rolling the dice. It's a cooperative game. My wife and I have had just a blast playing that, and back the Colpax's Secret, I think it's called, the newest Kickstarter was on crowdfunding not too long ago. And we really have enjoyed that Role Player Adventures. Kind of, you're not building up the characters with the dice as much. You're building up the characters more with the cards that you develop, but that allows you to roll more and different dice as you start living out these adventures and trying to survive and accomplish different tasks and goals. So Role Player Adventures by Thunderworks Games, that is my number 2 letter R game. My number 1 letter R game is right here over my shoulder, Return to Dark Tower. I haven't quite covered it up with all these other games, but I backed that one and have all the expansions. I backed the newest expansion. I have to admit, it has been a little while since I got it to the table. When I first received it, played it several times solo with my wife, with some friends from a game group, and since that point, I just haven't been able to get it back to the table because I've been wanting to play so many other games as well. And it is, again, a little bit of a setup, and I would love to play it with people, but with my gaming group, we're literally playing something new almost every week. And so I love that, but we don't generally get back to games very frequently. And so it's just been harder to get to the table for that reason. And my wife enjoyed it, but again, it is a little bit longer. And if we're going to play a longer game, she would prefer Ark Nova or Legends of Andor. She liked it, but not as much as I do. So for me, it's my favorite R game and one of my favorite games overall. I love the tower, and while you might think it's superfluous on one regard, it catches people's eye. And I took it to school for a game day demo, and the students were just drawn to it, and they had a great time asking me questions about it. It was such a setting where we couldn't really play it that day, but I do have hopes to one day bring it in and have a group of students come in and try it out with me. So Return to Dark Tower, my number 1 R game out of the 23 that I have that qualified. And then the letter S, 34 games in my collection that qualify in terms of owning them, rating them, having played them. And so I'm going to go through 7. And the first one, what did I do? Oh, here it is. The first one is 7 Wonders. And I have Cities expansion, Leaders expansion, and I also enjoy 7 Wonders Duel, but I actually prefer 7 Wonders. If I want the dual game, I'd actually prefer to play, Unforgiven, the Lincoln Assassination Trial. I like that one. It's a lot like 7 Wonders Duel, but I like that one better as a dual game. This one, though, I love the fact that you can play it with so many players, and if you throw in Leaders and Cities, you can just add that much more complexity. You're drafting cards, gaining resources, trying to combo things, and I do like 7 Wonders Duel as well. But 7 Wonders is my number 7 in this list of S games. Number 6 is one that my wife and my son and I have had a lot of fun playing together. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. We have a couple different versions of it. We played several different mysteries out of each one, and still more to go. This is the Jack the Ripper and West End Adventures version, and this one's by Space Cowboys, and Asmodee. So Sherlock Holmes, it's more almost like you're reading a story. You've got a map, you've got a newspaper, you're trying to discern these clues after reading the newspaper and looking at the map and reading through the book, different interviews with people who might be suspects or who might have been a witness to a crime, and you're trying to solve the crime faster than Sherlock Holmes can. Now, I think we've played maybe 7 or 8 times, and only once have we ever actually beat Sherlock Holmes. There's been a couple times where we scored respectably, but we've never been able to actually score a positive score, which means like we surpassed his ability. He always does it faster regardless, but sometimes we would solve some of the side quests. So there was one that we just kind of nailed and earned a lot of points for, but most of the time we get smashed by Sherlock. But it's always a lot of fun. We usually put the fire, get the fire going, lay on the floor in the living room, and spread out the map and just kind of talk and drink hot cocoa and tea or whatever. We like to play it around Christmas time when our son might come out and visit. So Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, also really terrific. And that is number 6 in the S's. Number 5 is San Juan. My wife and I haven't played this one in a while, but we used to play this one a ton. It's a bit like Puerto Rico, the card game. And so you've got these different actions you're taking, and you're trying to build up different industries. Basically, you've got indigo and coffee and all these things. You're trying to build up collections of them in your tableau. But every time you take an action, the other players get to take a follow of that that's not as good, but still the same kind. So you might take a really strong build action, you might take a lesser build action. And so we really have enjoyed this. It's been probably a couple of years since we got this to the table. It's a Ravensburger Aaliyah version here, Andreas Seyfarth, and Seyfarth, I'm not sure how, Seyfarth, however you say his name. But we really enjoy this. Haven't played Puerto Rico, but just recently picked up the new 1897 version and looking forward to trying it. So San Juan is my number, where are we at? Number 5. All right. Number 4 is, here we go, Seventh Continent by Serious Pulp. And this is one of the games that really kind of helped us dive in. We had tried a lot of different games, and when we tried this Seventh Continent, it was like, wow, this is totally different. We're building a map as we go. We're cooperating to choose how we're going to take different items and how we're going to use those items to solve this mystery. And we have just gotten our butts kicked every time we've played this game, but we really enjoy it. It's been, again, a while since we've played it, and we were talking about trying to get to it over our last break, but we ended up again playing Ark Nova and Legends of Andor and some other longer games and never quite got this into the table. But Seventh Continent is one. We still have a lot of different mysteries to work through, and so hopefully we'll get this one back to the table soon. It's just tough because it does take time. Every time we play it, it's usually 2-3 hours. And it's interesting, though, because we'll play for 2 or 3 hours and we're done. We're like, wow, how much time passed? How did that happen? And then we'll often leave it set up and then try to come back to it. And so, again, that's just become a little bit harder as my game collection has grown and as we're always trying to play new things. But Seventh Continent is my number 4 and the letter S is. Number 3 is a relatively new one to the collection, but one we played quite a bit. This is The Spill by Smirk and Dagger, Smirk and Laughter Games. Andy Kim designed it, and Quanche Moria did the art. I really love it because of that kind of science theme that connects to it, of trying to basically stop an oil spill, save animals in the process, clean up the environment. It's another cooperative game, and again, my wife and I tend to love cooperative games. We played it just together. We played it with different combinations of friends. Really a lot of fun. It's got a cool oil rig right in the middle. So The Spill is my number 3 letter S game. Let's see. Let's keep running out of room here. Slide that right up there. All right. Number 2 is Sleeping Gods. And this is one of the expansions, the Tides of Ruin expansion. Haven't even cracked this one. Probably put 20 plus hours into Sleeping Gods, but none of the expansions yet. So Sleeping Gods is one that we really love. Again, kind of like Seventh Continent. Played 20, 30 hours of it. Want to get back to it and just haven't yet. And so it's my number 2. Love the art. I tend to really enjoy Ryan Lockett games. And I like both the narrative aspect of it and the kind of Euro-style play that comes through in a lot of these games. Now, I did eventually back the newest version, Distant Skies, where instead of being on a boat, you're flying in. So I'm curious to see how they're going to change things up. I really want to get this one back to the table and try to work through some of the expansion material before that one comes. I don't think that one's going to come till late in 2023. So hopefully over the summer, my wife and I have time off in the summer. I'm going to be doing some research with UCSB probably. So I don't know exactly how much time we're going to have, but I'm hoping we'll have some where we can get a lot of these kind of long games where we want to just set it out and not have to be coming home from school every night and doing homework and grading papers, and just having that time where I can maybe finish my research at UC Santa Barbara and then get back at night and play some games. So this is one we hope to get back to, my number 2 in the letter S. And then my number 1 in the letter S, this one's by Jamie Stegmeyer and Stonemeyer Games Scythe. This is the Rise of Fenris expansion. This is another one where my wife has actually never played Scythe. I've only played it solo and online, and I love it. I would play it all the time. And I think my wife will eventually like it. She just hasn't tried it yet. And I'd like to go through the Rise of Fenris, play the base game with her a few times, help her to understand the mechanisms, and then go through this campaign Rise of Fenris version, which I own but haven't had a chance to do yet. So Scythe is my number 1 S game. And so there you have it. Of the 34 letter S games, those are my top 7, and on down M, N, O, P, Q, R, and S in the Alphabet Challenge. Thanks again to Dwayne and Alicia for challenging me with this. I've had a lot of fun just kind of reminiscing about some of my favorite games and kind of looking at them letter by letter. And next week, we'll be putting out the 4th edition final episode of this series. So if you enjoyed this version, this edition tonight, I'd appreciate it if you'd give it a thumbs up. And it'd be terrific if you choose to subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions about any of these games, or if some of them are your favorites as well, or you have some other favorites out of these letters P through S, leave me some comments down below and tell me what other games I should be trying out. As always, thanks for watching. This is Billy Indiana, signing off.